and we just finished watching 1946's It's a Wonderful Life. It is the Friday after Thanksgiving. We are all still in food coma mode and eating turkey and pie. And stuffing. So on this, the unofficial first day of the Christmas season, I decided to pick a Christmas movie, and this is in actually my top 5 favorite movies of all time. And that's one of my top 5 Christmas songs of all time.
Probably the last good original
Christmas song ever made.
Created.
Yeah.
Okay, be quiet about the Christmas song.
Okay.
Focus on the movie.
So we're gonna go around the table and get everyone's impressions. Olive G.
I thought this movie was good.
Yeah, what'd you like about it?
First I wanted to say that secret ending to it was so hilarious.
We should caveat this by saying that as soon as we were done with watching Frank Capra's It's a Wonderful Life, there was an SNL skit with Dana Carvey playing the George Bailey character. Jan Hooks was Mary Bailey.
Jan Hooks was his wife, and the various cast members. It was from that era of Saturday Night Live.
Yes, and John Lovitz was Potter.
Yeah, where basically they find out that Potter stole the money, and there is a comeuppance. A very violent comeuppance.
Yeah,
they kill him.
Was a jerk.
Potter was a jerk.
Absolute jerk.
Yes, in the movie and in the
guy that lost the money,
Uncle Billy.
He was a lunatic.
He was a lunatic.
He was a drunk lunatic.
He loved animals though.
And
I gotta be honest, I'm jealous of Uncle Billy in that he owned a giant black crow or raven that would just constantly fly on his arm. That thing was cool.
Yeah.
I always wished I could have a pet raven, but even though it probably would mean tons of bird poop everywhere.
I want a bald eagle.
That's never gonna happen.
That's never gonna happen.
No, I just joking.
Yeah,
I want a squirrel.
The reason why people don't keep bald eagles as pets.
Yes, they do. They have like this little thing that they.
No, those are falcons, which are also not really cuddly or anything like of the sort.
Don't pull your eyes out.
Yeah, I mean,
all right, no more bird talk.
I was gonna say after reading Flora and Ulysses, I would see wanting a squirrel, and
squirrels
Uncle
don't
Billy,
get superpowers in real life.
That's true, and
Uncle Billy also we're going on some serious
squirrels are so amazing.
All right. How about the squirrels?
You like the film?
Why did you like the film?
Why did you like it? Make you feel good?
What else?
It also made me happy at the end for that guy.
Yes, it's a very happy ending, very good. It's like a top feel good movie.
Absolutely.
Although at the end when he kept on kissing his wife, it was just like, come on, man. Just stop. That's enough.
He was going pretty hard there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was just happy to be alive at that point, right?
The sequel's gonna have like 6 kids in it.
You already had 4.
Gee, what did you think of the movie?
I liked this movie.
What did you like about it?
I liked how the character George Bailey kept like sacrificing and persevering throughout the whole thing.
That was admirable.
I felt bad.
Yeah, I mean, you do feel bad for George, but he's like he's got to do it though.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
He loves his family. Even though he hates
the
Bedford
town.
Falls, he still loves Bedford Falls, and he doesn't want to see what would happen to it if it fell into the hands of
Potter,
a greedy miser like Potter.
Yeah, who was brilliantly played by the always genius Lionel Barrymore.
Yeah, such a curmudgeon.
Yeah,
Wait, who was Potter again?
He was the old guy.
He was the guy in the wheelchair.
The bad guy.
The bad guy.
Oh.
He was the heavy. Yeah. He was the one that no one liked. Did you have a favorite character in the movie, G?
No.
Wait, you didn't ask me what my favorite
I'm going to go back to you in a second. You didn't have a favorite character? Did you have a favorite scene in the movie?
No. I liked it all.
Okay, what about you? Did you have a favorite character in the movie?
Yeah.
Who?
I like that maid lady. When she started giving the money to them, and
Annie.
What did she say?
She said, I was saving this money if ever I get a husband. Yeah.
She was saving it for divorce, wasn't she?
I think she said that.
Oh, did she for
I'm
divorce?
saving her for a divorce if I ever got a husband. So yeah, she
prepares.
That.
Yeah, I was gonna say she was always thinking forward. So
although, I mean, she was already gray in the head, but if she hadn't got a husband back, at that point, she didn't get one.
Yeah.
Back then, like old. I mean, remember when he's like, "What happened to Mary?" And Clarence is like, "You're not gonna like it, George. She never married. She became a spinster." Like, dun, dun, dun. I mean, that was like, oh my god, that's it?
Yeah.
Like, it's like you were expecting him to be like, she's a prostitute, George. I was like, no, she works at the library. She's probably quite happy.
Yeah.
I mean,
did you have a favorite scene in the movie, Olive June?
I like that scene where he got double cash.
Where he got double cash. Okay, the ending.
Cash.
What about you?
what, like favorite scene?
Or just impressions and
Oh,
favorite
I mean,
characters, favorite scenes.
I thought I've always liked this film. It's pretty interesting how they do it because I mean you get the whole little narration and sort of it's not really a narration, more of a like a guide because it's angels talking about George's life,
right?
and you get like this overview of George's life. I always found it a little funny that George is not far out of high school, and
he already looks like
a
30-year-old man.
Yeah, he looks exactly. He's got all the wrinkles in his head, and he's like picking up. He's like, "Oh, Mary, yeah, she's just graduated high school too."
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, these it's worse than any WB drama where all the high school kids have like full beards and like 8-pack abs. But aside from that, it was great. It was interesting how they did Harry's entire life. I'm sorry, George's entire life, and they like gave that a really large amount of the running time of the film. Like the I guess the magic or whatever of it all doesn't really happen until close to the end. I mean, it's pretty much just the final act where he goes through his whole, this is the world where you don't exist.
Yeah.
None of it felt like, I mean, it never drags.
It never drags, and it doesn't feel rushed either.
It doesn't feel rushed. You get a real sense of George Bailey. You get a real sense of the sacrifice, and it's like an unrelenting sacrifice from this guy.
Yeah.
And he does it all. You can see that this is killing him in some ways, but he's not a bastard about there's only a couple of moments like right at the end where he cracks. Yeah. Especially you see it when with the children when the money disappears. And at that point it's just everything comes crumbling down. He just can't handle this weight anymore. Right. And he's crumbling under this weight because now on top of everything that he's done, now he could probably go to jail. And despite, I mean, you said it yourself, despite what he says to Uncle Billy, one of us is going to jail and it ain't going to be me. It's going to be George. He's going to be the one that takes the fall.
Because even in that scene with Potter, when he's groveling to him, he's like, I misplaced the money.
Yeah, he takes full blame for everything, even though it's completely...
And you see that moment where Potter's like, oh, interesting. Yeah. It's just some of the subtleties in this are very interesting.
Yeah, I think when Potter realizes that George is going to take the fall for this, he's just like, oh, I'm just going to
go run with it. Yeah.
I'm just going to go for the kill. If he was going to let Billy take it, he would still have the problem with George Bailey. Right. So he was just like, all right, he's going to take it. I'm going to go with it. And screw you, George.
And destroy the savings and loan, which was ultimately his goal.
Which was his goal. He just wanted to be the only game in town. Right. And screw everyone over. Yeah. Those garlic eaters.
So, I mean, that was interesting because we saw this on Prime, right?
It's on Amazon Prime. You get the black and white version or the color version. I originally wanted to see the black and white, which is the traditional one, but my child wanted to see the color version, so we opted for the color version.
I think the color version came out first.
No, it's the same movie.
It's the same movie.
Yeah. It's just that one is in color and the other one's black and white. The black and white is the original version, right?
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
Said black and white.
Anyway,
it's
a good story.
Quotes, Mom. Didn't say color in quotes. It said black and white in quotes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Anyway.
The
quotes are important, Mom.
God.
So, it was a good movie. It had a lot of interesting messages in it. Even the main one being that it's a rich man who has friends.
Right.
And also, that's sort of like emphasized throughout the film. I remember something I noticed that I never saw before was when they were in the Bailey building alone. There's a picture of his father. This is after his father has passed away, and there's the picture of his dad. And underneath the picture of his dad is a little placard, and the little placard says, "The only thing you take with you is what you give away."
Yes, which I thought was also, it's so funny. God, you are we are soulmates, because I never noticed that either. And I noticed it then, and I read it, and I was like, "Oh, that's really nice."
It was the first time I noticed it too, and it's a great sentiment. It's truly, it's true, because you can't take it with you. The only thing you can take with you is what you've given.
Yeah,
and it's a real good sentiment, and it's kind of carried throughout the whole thing. But George was never interested in getting rich.
Right.
I mean, he would make the little wish. Oh, I wish I'm a millionaire, and flip the little lighter switch. But when it came,
he was little and he said, "I wish I had $1 million," and he said,
"Hot dog,
hot dog, yeah." And even when he saved all his money, he would realize something would come up: the responsibilities of life, doing the right thing. Right. I mean, he could have just walked out of that boardroom when his father died.
And just
let the building alone collapse, because that's what Potter was there. He's like, "I want to liquidate this right now," and he heard Potter say something about his dad's integrity, and he was just like, "Screw you, old man." And he gave that speech, and he left, and he was right about to get in the cab and just go on a trip around the world or something that he saved all his money for.
Right.
And then right afterwards, he was going to go to college, and they come out right afterwards, and they're like, the board voted not to get rid of the savings loan, but only if you're in charge.
Right, which seems so unfair, because they all knew that he was going away, and yet to put that responsibility on his shoulders,
responsibility on him, that burden on him, and he knew that the building alone was really the only chance that most of the people had of having a truly good life, a chance for like home ownership. And it's hilarious.
Pottersville with all its bars.
Hilarious. The dollar amounts in this movie. They're like, how could a man save $5,000 for a home?
Yeah.
And I'm like, God damn, $5,000 to buy an entire house.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like the 20s or whatever. But
those were the
40s. Well,
this was 1928, right?
Oh yeah, well no, because it was after, right? 28 was when Harry graduated from high school.
Yeah.
So, and then they're almost at World War II.
No, yeah, so it'd
be somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere in the 30s.
Yeah.
During the Great Depression.
Yes, because after the honeymoon, when was when the
that's the thing. Every time he saves up a bundle of cash for himself, and this guy's good at saving.
Yes.
He has to give it all away. Like some great burden comes where he has to just give it, and this is. This is money, and this is what I was getting at before, that he wasn't really, when it came down to it, money was not the thing that he did this for. He did it, the things that he did because they were the right things to do.
Right.
He was helping everybody in this town make a better life for themselves.
Right.
And that's like a great message, and it's something that somehow that sort of thinking has not, it gets championed sometimes, but then a lot of what we champion now is just, I'm rich, getting that cash by any means necessary. And not necessarily doing the right thing once you have it.
Well, I think that's another thing about the Capra movies, right? I mean, this movie aside, I feel like Capra always had the market on the everyman that does good, the everyman who battles the big institutions. You see Jimmy Stewart again in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, where he's battling the swamp. Yeah. But Yeah, I mean, this movie, again, one of my top 5 favorite films. It was one of those movies where I can't, it's funny when you read the history of it, how it didn't do well when it originally was released. It didn't do well. And
it was a bomb.
Probably
it was a bomb.
ending.
No, I think people were still consumed with the war, the after effects of the war. Maybe, I don't know. I never deep dove into why it didn't do well, but
maybe because it's marketed as a Christmas movie, and really Christmas in it is sort of
an afterthought.
Really.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes place during Christmas.
Yeah, the only reason it's classified as a Christmas movie is because it takes place during Christmas.
Yeah.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
So
That's it.
that's really, there's no...
Yeah.
It's not like Santa comes around or anything like that. Yeah.
But I feel like, again, Capra always does these great pieces about, like, the everyman who triumphs. And like you said, I mean, not perfect, flawed, but at the same time of, like, a high moral integrity to the point where this person is willing to self-sacrifice themselves for the greater good. And I think that's definitely, I agree with you, I think that's definitely a thing that we don't really see a lot in movies nowadays. Everything is me, myself, and I. And
well, I'm not even talking about movies. I'm just talking about life in general.
Life in general too. Yes. Yeah. No. I think our movies also, like, I think art imitates life in a lot of respect. So I think a lot of the things that we see now are because of the times that we're living in, right? So in this case, this film was made in the 40s. We're getting over the Depression. We're getting over the war, the Great War. Oh no, the Great War was the first one, right?
Yeah.
The Second World War.
When did you say this came out?
1946.
Yeah, so this is right after the Second World War ended.
Right. So I think America's still kind of reeling, still trying to recover. A lot of our troops are coming back. They're broken. I mean, war does that to people. It's not kind. It's heavy. So I think this movie was always a favorite of mine. I remember it always. I think it was Channel 4. Every Christmas would put it on, I think, maybe.
Some station. it became a Christmas classic.
Right.
It was, it was like the Christmas like Easter had the 10 Commandments, and this was the one for Christmas. Either that or Miracle on 34th Street.
And I think, like you said, I think the movie, the themes in this are timeless. And I remember as a child, we had a VHS copy of this, and whenever I was sad, my brother would actually play this for me because he knew that it made me feel better. And it's funny because I still cry. I still cry at certain scenes, and I think the ending always gets me. Even as a young girl, the ending is so beautiful. And like when Harry says, yes, a toast to my brother, the richest man in Bedford Falls, I feel that. I feel that in every fiber of my being, and it just makes me... This movie, as a child and as an adult, always restores my faith in humanity, because I think that as crazy as the world gets, as heavy as it gets sometimes, there are good people. There's that famous quote by Fred Rogers about like how his mother said, always look for the helpers. And I think that George Bailey encompasses that and is part of this rich cultural tapestry of heroes in a way, right? And it's funny because George Bailey can be anybody. George Bailey just has to be a person that believes that there's good in everyone and is willing to make those hard decisions for the collective, right? That scene.
He realized there wasn't any good in Mr. Potter.
Well, he realized there was no good in Potter, but he was sort of like the thing that stood in Potter's way.
Yeah.
But he also knew that he needed the community to do that. Like that scene where the run on the bank where he's like, well, you don't understand. I don't have the money here. The money is in your house. It's in his house. It's in...
Yeah.
So he understood that, and he spoke to them like
people.
Like people. He didn't speak to them like trash. He didn't try to like con anyone. He didn't try to hurt anybody. Like the guy that came in and told a friend, like, oh yeah, Potter gave me like 50 cents on the dollar. Remember when he said that to George, and he's like, oh, you're always looking for the scam, right?
Yeah.
And it's true, you know. I mean, and it's funny because here's this guy, this miser Potter, who's just accumulating wealth. Like, who is he going to leave it to? His wheelchair? The guy that pushes his wheelchair? Like, he had no one.
He had nothing.
He had nothing.
Yeah, it was Christmas Eve, and he's sitting in his damn office.
Working, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God.
Sad, bitter old man.
The only more miserable than him is the guy pushing the wheelchair because he has to stand there and watch him work. At least Potter had something to distract
him. Yeah. And you would think the wheelchair guy would just like throw his dumb ass in a ditch at this point. And like, what a miserable piece of crap that guy was.
Can I go home, Mr. Potter? No.
It's like Bob Cratchit.
Watch me count this money. More money than you'll ever see in your life.
Oh, gosh. You know, it always surprises me that they haven't remade this movie. It's one of those things that I'm sure...
Well, you know what the thing is? It has been remade a million times.
Sure.
Because everybody has done a version of It's a Wonderful Life. They
don't
call it that.
Or they've, like, parodied it, right?
Yeah, exactly. They've parodied it. That's what I mean. And I'm sure there's, like, 80 Hallmark movies that have the same exact plot. And, like, all of those are just saccharine crap. And the thing that's good about this is... Yeah, it has the sweet ending. Yeah. But it's not saccharine crap.
No.
There's some like really desperate stuff going on.
Yeah.
I mean, he's gonna kill himself. I think I remember that was one of the reasons why it didn't play well.
Yeah.
Because he was going to kill himself, and like people were like, "This is a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
It's a Christmas movie. The guy who's gonna murder himself." And I mean.
But it's done so well.
It's done so well, and I think what helps, like I said earlier, is that they really dedicate a lot of time to this guy's life. Yeah. Just the telling of his life from childhood to adulthood, to the moment when
he has this crisis,
this huge burden happens.
Yeah.
And I think doing that prevented it from becoming like a sappy.
Yeah, because they could have cut corners. This isn't a short movie. It's over 2 hours.
Over 2 hours long.
Over 2 hours long, and that's not common, I want to say, in the 1940s. I feel like most movies were less than that, maybe an hour and a half.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I know the hour and a half thing became sort of like the magic number when it, like later on, like in the 60s and 70s. Mm-hmm. Because, you wanted to get people in and out of theaters.
Sure.
But that's sort of also more prevalent because more stuff was being released. I mean, I don't know how many movies were actually theatrically released.
True, but I'm also thinking of like the noir movies of like the 40s and 50s.
Yeah,
they were about like an hour and a half.
They were about an hour.
Yeah, I mean, there was I just saw something with Bogey, and it was like a little bit over an hour. I was like, wow, that wasn't that long. So this is a long piece. Like you said, it had some heavy elements to it. It goes quick, though. Yeah, I mean, the storytelling is fantastic. The acting is phenomenal.
Some of the characters are a little, like, obviously it's the 1940s. There's a bit of stereotyping going on.
Sure.
The Italian guy with 1 million kids and a goat. I mean, Nick the bartender was like right out of a Looney Tunes, like tough guy.
Sure.
Either through the door or out the window, you guys are getting out of my butt. And he spoke just like this.
Yeah.
No, I don't think those kids that went in his car were his children.
I'm pretty sure all those kids were Martini's kids.
Yeah, they might have been.
The ones that weren't were George's kids. The rest of them were Martini's.
I don't think George had kids at that point.
Oh, he didn't?
No. Not when Martini first got his house, no.
Oh, really? So, yeah they were definitely Martini's kids.
Yeah, like the people that went into the car with him, those weren't his children.
Okay, so yeah, those...
Because, remember, the narrator would have said if he had those children. Because remember when they explained that they had like a little boy and then a little girl.
Yep.
And then a bunch of other children that came along after that.
And that was sort of another point where like you see a bit of George's frustration. Like right after he sees his friend Sam, and Sam is just like, "Oh, come down to the Florida with me," and he realizes I can't. I got the responsibilities, and he sees Sam driving off in that luxury car and
being driven by a driver
with his wife all in fur and diamonds, and he's got this jalopy that the door doesn't even work.
Yeah,
and you see him get a little frustrated. You think he kicks the door.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's still such a lovely, lovely, magical movie. And kudos to Frank Capra for the phenomenal storytelling, right? I mean, this is something that...
It was great to show a guy's life and just to make it as interesting as they did. And to show all the... I mean, you really understand why it's so important that this guy was alive, that one man's life could make such a difference to an entire community.
Yeah.
And not only that community, but all over the world. I mean, the entire transport ship of soldiers.
Right. Clarence says to
dead
him
because
George wasn't there to save Harry. Yeah. So his life had that ripple effect.
The ramifications, and it's true in anybody's life, really. The ramifications of what you do carry on in ways that you could never imagine. Absolutely. Just from being alive, just from being who you are, and hopefully you're doing good things.
Yeah.
Hopefully the good things you do
come back to you.
Not only come back to you, but just carry on to do other good things. I mean, it would be a shame if you, I saved that guy's life, and he goes on to murder 80 people. You want that guy to be the guy who cures cancer.
Right. But the other nice thing is that, like, all the good he put out came back to him. That, again, that ending scene where Uncle Billy is like, it was all Mary. She told people that you were in trouble. They didn't ask any questions. They just started collecting money.
Yeah. And even, you knew that was going on because it's all, please help George Bailey, please help George Bailey. All the prayers going up to heaven.
Yeah. The writing on this is really great. I mean, some of the lines, like George with the cut lip, he's like, I got a sock in the jaw as an answer to a prayer. There's just so much richness in the language and in the storytelling and in the script. And again, to your point, agreed. Phenomenal acting by everyone, even secondary and tertiary characters that just do this world building so that you can get a good sense of who George Bailey is.
Yeah.
And it's just magnificently done. You know what? I'm going to give this a 10. I mean,
it's your favorite movie. It
is my favorite movie of all time, as hokey as it is. But again, it's one of those things where
it's a good hokey. It doesn't feel.
It's not. But I was going to say, if you've listened to us, you know how storytelling is so important to me as a person. I think I mentioned this before, but my dad was a huge lover of films, and because he was an immigrant, tried to teach himself English by watching movies. So that's where our love of movies started from. Like, we used to go as a family every Sunday to the cinema and spend pretty much the whole day there. Sometimes we'd watch a movie repeatedly, or we'd sneak into other little theaters to see other movies. But that was the weekend family tradition, and it was so sacred to me. And I still, to this day, obviously not right now because of COVID, but when I met my husband, another nice thing was that he was also a film major like me, and we've always loved going to movies. And there was a time where I think when we were first married, we were going to the movies like every weekend.
Well, I had the same upbringing.
Yeah.
We would go to the Kingsway, which was like one of those theaters that showed like 5 different movies. We'd go early. We'd spend the entire day there. My mom would basically pop up an entire, the old paper shopping bags, big paper shopping bag filled with popcorn. And we would go to the theater.
Wow. My dad was decadent. We always got snacks at the concessions.
No. Yeah. My family was thrifty. I mean, sometimes when we couldn't go to the Kingsway, we'd go to this place called the Midwood. which was dollar movies. Like even back then, that was like cheap.
Yeah.
And that place was like sitting in a bong. Seriously, the entire place just reeked of marijuana, and you'd just be watching these movies and you'd see little streams of light going over your head towards the front of the theater, because when the people were like smoke their joints down to little nubs, they would just flick them, and you'd be like, "Ooh." And we'd be like, "Mommy, what's that smell?"
I'm sure your theaters were like this, but when we lived in Bay Ridge, you remember the Bay Ridge movie theater.
Alpine.
The Alpine. And that used to only be 2 theaters, and they were majestic. They were like huge.
Kingsway was like that too. Yeah. There used to be only 2 theaters, and they were very nice. And then they just started bisecting and then trisecting them.
Well, that movie theater went into disrepair. I remember seeing in the 80s, like The Last Dragon, that movie, The Shogun of Harlem. I remember seeing it in that theater, and I was like, God, these seats are really disgusting. And it was just
the floors are always
sticky,
just like
always
sticky. That would rip
God,
at your feet.
I would see people with like brooms and stuff. I don't think they ever took a mop to that floor, but it didn't really matter, because I feel like there was like 5 layers of just something on that floor. But yeah, and then they years after that, I guess to make more money, they bisected the theaters too. I think the Alpine eventually became like 5 or 7 theaters. The Fort Way 2 was also one of those big majestic theaters, and they also made that, condensed it up. But then that one went away before I think the Alpine is still there. But
I think I remember when the Kingsway was just 1 and it had a balcony, and then they cut it in half and made it into 2, upper and lower, and then they split that into 4, and then somehow they built a theater around the back.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That was crazy. Super tiny.
It's sad because it's like the whole nostalgia thing, and I really, you and I, we're so much alike. We like old architecture, we like history of things and stuff like that. So, yeah, I miss those old theaters, and I miss going to the theater. I hope that hopefully sometime next year we can actually sit in a movie theater again. That'll be fun. But for now, this has been a great time. We get to spend a lot of time with the kids. We both have jobs that let us work from home, so that's really nice.
So 1 to 10.
Let's yes, I'm sorry. Can I just make a point really quick?
Sure.
It's just nice that this movie, again, themes that really relate to life. I think it's important, not what you worship, but just always try to be a good person, I think, is really important, because it's a legacy that you leave, whoever you are. Just try to always be a good person. I think that's something that isn't stressed enough these days. Everybody's on a get-rich-quick scheme, and, that's okay too, but at the end of the day, just try to be good. And I think the
only thing you take with you is what you give.
Is what you give, yes.
That's what the picture or the quote said in his dad's office.
Yes, that's right. So, so I outed myself. A perfect 10, fantastic script, amazing acting. Kudos to Frank Capra for bringing this lovely little picture to the big screen. G, what do you think? Be honest. You don't have to love it.
I'll give this an...
Come on, Gracie.
I'm thinking.
I'll give it a 9.
9.
I've always loved this movie.
8.
An 8.
8. Actually, an 8.5.
An 8.5. Very nice.
I'll give this a 7.5.
Wow.
7.5. Oh, that's still better than average.
Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. So that's it from us.
Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you for stopping by, and we'll be back with another review soon. Good night.
Good night.
Night.